Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I'm here to bring you today an incredibly spoiler-heavy video all about time stories, ranking the different scenarios. So spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. I'm going to be talking about all things time stories, every single bit of information that could be there, that could be spoilerific. So if you haven't played these games, I strongly recommend get a copy, go play it. It's amazing. So if you're interested in knowing the spoilers, you could definitely watch this video. But if you have any interest whatsoever, or maybe just interest in these puzzle, narrative-driven games, I recommend you stop this video and go check out Time Stories. Get it played, have a blast, try out the first scenario, see if it's something that's going to be for you. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Not a big deal. You could just enjoy, learning about the world of that this video is going to talk about if you want to stick around. But right up the front, super spoilery. I hope that you still enjoy this video, whether you've seen it or if you haven't. So we'll see what happens. But this is something that I want to talk about today, and I want to share with you all. So these are the Time Stories scenario ranked. So what is Time Stories? This is a scenario-based puzzle game. It's kind of like a escape room game before those were actually a thing. This is Space Cowboys. So this is the company who does the Unlock games, and they had this narrative puzzle-based game before that. So an incredible design coming from 2015, awesome year in board gaming, and this really made me think, wow, Time Stories can do a lot. Board gaming can do a lot. It gave you this narrative that you are a time agent, and your whole thing is to go back in time, and you need to fix blips in the time stream to make sure that the future doesn't get ruined. And it's done through this module system. So you have this large board here that has room for all of these large cards, and you're going to be placing them from this deck. And so you have this deck that's unique to each scenario, and the game begins with Asylum and goes on and on and on with different expansion after expansion. After a while, they left this model of needing this core game and getting the modules in order to go for the Revolution. And Revolution is, you can tie it into a large narrative like the first one through the Experience module here, but these are going to be more standalone games. You can buy a single copy of the game and you're good to go, you're ready to play. So there's two modules to go with, but I'm going to talk about all of the different time stories, these time stories, just everything. We're going to talk about it all here. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So there's 11 right now, and the bottom of the list here I think is absolute garbage. This is going to be Time Stories Revolution, A Midsummer Night. So I think that this is the worst Time Stories module. So the setting of this one is really cool. You are going to be in this fantasy Shakespearean land, and you take the form of the different characters in this play. And it's really interesting, the theme itself. So you start off the game, you're in this like fairy area, you have this large map, and the Revolution modules actually add this really cool feature, which is the interaction mechanism, where you, depending on which character you are, you can talk to people and get different responses, and I think that's really cool. However, this game suffers, specifically this module suffers by removing choice and removing anything interesting or fun in this. This is basically just a giant game of railroaded adventure. You don't really have any agency, you don't really have any choices. Everything is really just laid out for you. There's nothing crazy, nothing interesting going on, and you just kind of are there and the game happens to you, and I think that's awful. The whole point of this experience is to experience it, live it, make those decisions and make those, key choices in order to progress your narrative, not just sit there and have the narrative wash over you. So if you want something like that, I would not recommend, if you want something like that, play this module, but I wouldn't recommend any of the other time stories. The fun of it is exploring and getting your pieces of the narrative while putting the mission first and forward. This one, you're getting washed with the narrative, and the gameplay is just not satisfying when that happens. So unfortunately, this is not really time stories in my opinion. I think this is the worst one in the entire series. So this is my bottom of the list, my number 11. This is A Midsummer Night. Now, all the other ones here are pretty good. They actually have you making choices, but there are some issues that we'll see with number 10. This is Lumen Fide. So number 10 is really interesting. So this has you playing during the Spanish Inquisition, I believe, and it's got a really interesting theme to it, but I'll be honest, I didn't get to finish this one because there is a glaring flaw in this game. So we'll get to that in a second, but it's really interesting. You have characters that are either good or bad, essentially, and you're kind of leaning into that, like deciding what your group is going to be. Are you going to be good people or bad people during this? So are you going to go with the, the sisters here and do great, or are you going to really give in to your dark side? And so you have some interesting choices there. However, you can get to a situation where you get stuck. And that's what happened to us. And apparently this is a problem, and we figured this out later, but there can be a situation where you can reach a certain chain of events, and that makes it so you can't go anywhere. And that's what happened to us. We got really frustrated, and we didn't pick it up again after playing this one. So it had that the exploration, it had that choice, and it allowed us to get into this position, but we did get stuck. So we looked it up later, and we found out what happened and how this has happened to other people as well. So if you're going to play this one, go check it out and say, hey, be aware that this exists. If you're going to play Lumen Fide, know that that exists. After we found out what happened, we went ahead and kind of went back to where we were, but it wasn't the same experience. You want to kind of play these all at one time. So I don't think this one's that good because that can happen, but it sounded like a really cool scenario. It has like these 3 distinct acts, and I think that's really cool. And the rest of these are good, but just the fact that you can get stuck is a no-go for me. So kind of unfortunate, but that's number 10, Lumen Fide. So that's from our experience. Now, a lot of these are going to be based on our experience. Number 9 is going to be Brotherhood of the Coast. Brotherhood of the Coast has you playing in the pirate age. So really cool. You're going to be going back in time, and you'll be head of a ship, and you're trying to get crewmates and basically trying to bolster up your ship so you can go for like this final onslaught as you're trying to get to this island that has the things you need. So really interesting. I love like the gathering of the crew. I love the setting. I love pirate themes. I think they're so fun. But the thing that made this one also go kind of near the end here, and you're going to see that with these next 3 are the endings. So these next 3 here have ways that the game can end where you literally do nothing. You kind of go back to that Midsummer Night, right, where the narrative's just washing over you, and you get to watch things happen that are just not awesome. So this one in particular, you get to a choice, and this happened with our group. You get to a choice where you can either assist this person or not, and we decided to assist them, and because we took that choice, we literally skipped like 3 sections of the game, and we just watched it happen. We read an additional card, and we just packed it up. It was super boring, it was super uninteresting, and it really it was really anticlimactic. We got to the end and it was just done. It was not fun, not exciting, missed a lot of cool puzzles. It was not good. So lots of good build-up, but super anticlimactic. Really unfortunate. So that's why Brotherhood of the Coast is my number 9. The number 8 is going to be very similar. This is Time Stories Madame. Now, this is the conclusion to all of the white box expansions in general, so before Revolution came in. And this has a really cool setting. So the setting is at the Palace of Versailles in France. And I've actually been there. We got to go there right after we played this scenario, and that was super cool. Love this place. I love the history behind this section. This like huge conglomeration of wealth. It's really interesting. But the setting here is really cool. The setup is great. So what happens is you get put into kind of like these mini scenarios. So you have a limited amount of time, because normally you have this large chunk of time, but here you have a very small amount of time, and you're going to be going from little scene to scene to scene to scene, which is really cool. I like that. It's a very interesting twist on the mechanics. However, the very end of this scenario, it kind of ends promptly, kind of like it just happens. And in addition, it is not a satisfying end to this white box series as a whole. Somebody has compared it to, I don't remember who said it, but the Buy More Ovaltine from Christmas Story, where you finish the end and it just tells you to buy the next series. And it's super frustrating. It's just not that satisfying. Once again, anticlimactic ending. But I think that build-up is a little bit stronger than Brotherhood of the Coasts, so that's why this is a bit higher for me. I like that interesting twist on kind of the changing mechanism, and I like the setting a lot. So I think this is really, really strong for the story and the scenario and the decisions and kind of making those snap decisions going to place. I like that a lot, but that ending just sucks. So that's my number 8, Madame. My number 7 is another one that is the ending is the issue, and that's because this one is so short. It is abrupt. It's just done. And it's kind of crazy because the whole beginning of this thing is one of the best. So Time Story Expedition Endurance is so cool. The setting is amazing. You are on this, I forget the name of it, but you are basically on this expedition where you're going down to Antarctica. I don't remember who it is, but it's like a very famous ship, but maybe I'll remember later. But you're going to explore this entire area, and something has gone awry. And right off the bat, the coolest thing is you get your calculations put in to go back in time travel, but they send you too far forward, and you see like what has happened to the crew. after you're supposed to be there, and like everybody's dead, things are decaying. It's terrifying. So I love that, how you initially get here and it's just dark and creepy and mysterious. So cool. So then you actually get brought back into your normal timeline and then get resent back, and you get to see everything beforehand. So you get some clues about like what's happening with this situation. It's so cool. So I love that. I think that's an incredible mechanism, and they actually use it later in other scenarios, going back in time to like multiple time periods in the same place. So freaking cool. I love that. I love that part about it. However, as soon as that happens, like you kind of interact with the ship a little bit, you leave the ship for like a split second, and then it's like over. It's done. And that's insane to me because it's got some of the most satisfying things in it, but it's just over so abruptly, and it's just done. And oh man, this has some of the coolest ideas, some of the coolest things, and it does them well, but it's over before it even really gets started, and that's really unfortunate. So that's my number 7, Expedition Endurance. Now, number 6 here is from Time Stories Revolution, actually. This is the first one from the new series, and this is actually by Kevin and Melissa Delp, and I think that's awesome. So they were able to create their own, because they did a little promotion for this where you could create a fan expansion for this and have it published as a game, and Kevin and Melissa Delp were both able to do this and did a fantastic job. This is awesome. This like promised that this new system would be incredible, and I thought it was great. So this employs that same mechanism from Midsummer's Night, where you have like the conversation cards, and they're going to be attributed to each of the different characters, and whoever you talk to, your interactions are going to be different. I think that's so good, and it's done so well in this one. This one actually has a puzzle that is present for you to solve. It's based on your decisions, the pieces that you have for the puzzle, and based on how well you do in those pieces that you pick up, the puzzle will be different, it will promote a challenge, and it will actually affect how the story goes. And I think that's so cool. This also employs the mechanism of traveling back in time again in the same space, just like Endurance, and I think it does it really well. It's really fun. It's great. So I really enjoy this one. The theme of like trying to find this virus cure, but you just happen to be underwater to do that, is so cool. I love the space, I love the design, and I like the different time periods that you explore in this. So fantastic scenario. Well done, Delps. I think this is incredible. So awesome start to the next series. Now my number 5 is, and we're going back to the original game, and this is going to be the original Time Stories Asylum. So Asylum is the scenario that comes in the base game. It has you going to an insane asylum, and at this insane asylum you are going to actually be in the bodies of the inmates of the asylum. So that being said, each of you is going to have your own quirk. You might be a cannibal, you might be completely paralyzed, you might have PTSD, and that's going to affect your character, and I think that is so cool. So right off the bat, great characterization of the different challenging characters. The situations that you're presented are like novel and fresh. It's your first kind of taste of the Time Stories model, and the puzzle is laid out for you. You can make mistakes, you learn from those mistakes, and it's really neat how it kind of like evolves. There's this amazing puzzle that you have to solve right before the climax that is well earned. This is so cool. I really like this. I like how your decisions matter here. I like how you can follow paths for a long time and get rewarded, or you can totally get dunked on. It is so funny. I love it. I think that this one is so cool. It has some very memorable moments in it. It's great. And this comes with the core game, and this is going to be your first taste into it. And I think that's an awesome place to put it right at the beginning. Now, you're going to notice that a lot of the early ones are at the top of my list, and that's pretty great. The top 3, you'll see. So that's Asylum. Incredible. My number 5. Now, number 4 is Estrella Drive. Estrella Drive is so interesting. This is the only Time Story scenario that is marked explicitly mature. So you have to be of a certain age to actually play, because there is nudity, there is gore, and there is extreme violence in this one, because it is based off of the Manson murders. So the occult murders that occurred in California, super terrifying, but such an interesting theme to see developed in a game. So this also employs the same mechanism from Hadal Project and Expedition Endurance, where you're going to be going back to the same location multiple times. However, you have to kind of discover what's happening and why you're going back, and actually discover how to go back in time during the scenario itself. So it's really cool. It presents like a secondary puzzle in the game, and just the theme itself is so interesting, so cool. I love that they were able to take this concept and really make it work. So very impressed with Estrella Drive. But yeah, this one is really good. I was very, very impressed. My number 3 is going to be Time Stories Under the Mask. Now, this one, first off, it has an Egyptian theme, which I think is great, and I think it's done so well. And this one is so good because it really plays with the time story system. So right off the bat, you've got this great theme, and the whole thing is the mission is presented to you very nice and clearly at the beginning, saying, hey, you got to go and you need to re-put the poison on King Tut's masks because somebody found it when they weren't supposed to, killed themselves, and basically deactivated all the booby traps. So you have to go and re-poison the mask. That is so cool. I love that concept right off the bat. The second thing that's incredible is when you actually get into the scenario, you're presented with new technology, a new feature that you can use in the scenario, and it's this little bug. So this little bug here it's like a little machine, and you can use it to jump from person to person. So normally you have a character and you're that character the whole run. In this one, not the case. You actually can pick other characters that you meet and you play and you interact with, and you can become them, and it's up to you if you want to do that. So you have choices here with which characters you're going to be, and I think that's so cool. You get their traits, you get additional abilities and bonuses based on who you are. I think that's so novel, so awesome, and it's so well done. It has clear objectives, it has awesome new ways to do those objectives, and it has a setting that I think works incredibly well. So I love this one. I love that new mechanism. That's my number 3, Under the Mask. My number 2 goes to the Marcy case. Marcy case was the second expansion for this, and it's incredible. So right off the bat, it puts you into this really unique comic world, but there's a zombie apocalypse happening. But unlike other games that are kind of like hack and slash zombie games, this one is very different. This one is very calculating. It's very puzzle driven, but you also have that combat. So it's got a great mix of everything that's in the time story system. In addition, the mission here is really interesting. You're finding a girl that has been kidnapped, and you'll have to bring her to be rescued so that the disease can be cured, because her blood is like a key component for curing this zombie disease. So I think that's really cool right off the bat. But then they throw in this really cool twist where there are multiple of this Marcy girl, and you're trying to figure out which one is the correct one. So you have lots of different choices, lots of different routes you can take, things that you may see, different ways to approach the ending, and ultimately lots of choices, lots of interesting choices, and a lot of fun and a lot of real pressure. It's so good. I love this one. It's amazing. So I was so impressed with this. I think it's amazing. It really is different than that first scenario, and it's different than all the others. And I think that's why these top 4 really shine, is because they're so different. And this one is up there for sure with some of the best, one of the best narrative experiences here. Time Story is so good, and this is one of those, like, the shining moments there. But my number 1 is by far the best. This is A Prophecy of Dragons. Now, it does have one little kink. There's one tiny spot in this game where it's like completely luck-based, and that sucks, but everything else is over-the-top incredible. First of all, it puts you in an alternate timeline, which is so cool, because you're like on a different planet, and this planet is like a fantasy world, but you're still obeying the rules of your time agents, right? You still have the ability to jump into caissons, and you get to kind of learn about the larger world that exists in this Time Stories universe. And this is really where that world building shines. So in this one in particular, though, you take control of a variety of characters. You have so many choices right off the bat. And in addition to that, there's actually a point in this game where you're going to have another swath of choices, and you'll just have so many options on how you want to proceed. So the choice is yours. You're going to be collecting these medallions and eventually finding your way into this dark castle in order to approach this evil, essentially Time Lord from this race of time, basically the bad people against your agency, so your nemesis in controlling time. So awesome. And when you finally get into the castle, that's where this deck of cards comes in, the mystery deck. And how cool is this? You open up the mystery deck, and it's the castle. It's everything inside the castle. And not only does it contain some amazing art, some amazing story, but it's also going to put you up into this area where you are going to be interacting with things that you've seen in your previous adventures. So remember, this is only the 3rd scenario in the series, but just those little callbacks to things that you've seen, and then flashbacks and flash forwards to things you may see in the future. This was peak Time Stories. Like, this experience one of my best gaming experiences, period. Like this is incredible. You're getting flashes of like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, this could happen. Oh my gosh, where are we? This is so cool. You have like this mini labyrinth that you're going through, little adventures. It's a satisfying experience with super cool thematic ties, this immense amount of world building in this amazing delivery method, and then it also features this incredible boss battle at the end. Whew, this game is so good. This is up there. So I mean, if you're gonna play time stories, play the first 4 and call it a day. Play the first 4 in a straight drive, and you can call it a day. Amazing. I think this is incredible. It's so gripping. It's so fun. It's so interesting. This is peak narrative gaming. It's so good. So that's my list. That's my ranking of the time story scenarios. Now, remember, this is all based on my personal experience. Your experience might be completely different than mine. Maybe it's the people you're with. That can be huge. Maybe it's the amount of people that you played with. So I mainly played this with 4 people each time, and I thought it was incredible. Maybe if you're playing with a consistent group, it could be different. But wow, Time Stories is just such an incredible game concept. It's an incredible game concept, incredible game engine, and it's something that I'm always going to give a try. Sure, this last scenario, absolute trash, but I'm going to go into the next one with an open mind because the people behind this game have amazing ideas, and I can't wait to see them try to pull them off. And if they do, oh man, if we get another Prophecy of Dragons or Marcy Case or Under the Mask, I will be ecstatic. And I think 2, 3, 4, 5 bad game experiences are worth it for the peak storytelling, narrative-driven, puzzle-solving, cooperative game experience. I think it's amazing. So those are my scenarios ranked. I'd love to hear what you think. Have you played the Time Story scenarios? What do you think overall? Yeah, what do you think of my thoughts? Is this something that now you're kind of eager to try, or have I scared you off with the spoilers? Hopefully not. I hope that you can still experience this and have a great time with it. But thank you so much for watching and for listening to all my thoughts. Side Game Strong.